Welcome to the Anchor Your Retirement podcast. I am my host in this fake spring of February with my co-host, Tony Shore. Tony, I have spring fever. It's like in the 60s here today.
Wow.
Pitchers and catchers are reporting it's like my favorite time of year.
Spring training.
Hey, and our season opener is against the Twins.
Is it really?
It is.
So you're going to lose your season opener? That's
the
so
heck
sad.
will lose that.
That's so sad, Barb.
Oh,
you're
Tony, bite
lose.
your tongue. We're going to have to break out the ball caps. And you're going to get to wear the leopard print one this year. Just saying.
No. Yeah, pink leopard print. I'll wear it. Yeah, sure.
Well, it's leopard print. It's not pink. But today is Friday the 13th.
It
day
is
before
Friday
Valentine's Day.
Yes,
I've got the pink going on.
You got the pink going on, and I hope Eric gets you something really nice for Valentine's Day or does something nice for you.
He did. I got my gift a day early. And then we flew in some lobster tail. We're going to have a quiet dinner at home.
Goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
It will be a nice evening for sure.
Oh, beautiful. That's
quiet,
great.
Just the way I like it. So anyway, how ironic that this is Friday the 13th with the topic that we're discussing today. And it also happens to be our 113th show. I am just all over this. And Taylor Swift, if you ever listen to this podcast, know that we did this with you in mind.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Hopefully Taylor's out there listening, or her people, or yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
But we are going to talk about a book today that was written by an economist at the University of Kansas. Her name is Misty Hegnes. And she recently published a book that's called Swiftynomics: How Women Mastermind and Redefine Our Economy.
Wow. That's great. I love how they call it Swiftynomics. That's funny. That's great.
Now, my daughter has been a Swiftie since before it was fashionable. Okay.
That's awesome.
I remember doing a great purge of her room and finding one of the Red album on CD.
Yep.
And the CD had not been treated well. I'm just going to be honest about that. And
kids don't treat boy, and that, you know me, I baby, I have lots of CDs, lots of albums, and I tell my wife, kids and pets, don't touch them.
when we play the turntable at Eric's house, we put something up in front of the turntable so that nothing will jar the turntable.
Right.
Yeah, all the things. And I thought my daughter was nuts when she took the whole day off before she went to the Eras tour here in Kansas City. She had a friend who had tickets that were 6 rows from the stage.
Wow.
Okay. And I kid you not, she took the whole day to get ready for the show. She had glitter in her hair. She had glitter everywhere. And over the course of the next few weeks, my house had glitter everywhere as it was systematically shedding off of the person.
Yeah.
But, I am new to the whole Swiftie thing. I'm just going to be honest. Okay.
But you're a big fan. I know you are.
I do. I am, but I really didn't listen to her music and truly appreciate it until the Tortured Poets album.
Right.
And then my daughter.
A lot of people got on board at that point.
Yes.
And especially women, because she's all about empowering women and relationships and women can relate.
It's a great story. And, and then they introduced me to Reputation, which became the soundtrack for my divorce.
No.
Yes, especially Vigilante. I can't say the second word. But anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand, which is the whole premise of Swiftynomics was when Taylor Swift took that Eras tour for 149 dates or whatever it was throughout the world, smaller nations in particular could actually mark a spike in their GDP thanks to the economic impact of her being there on tour.
crazy.
Yeah,
because in other areas, in other continents and countries, especially smaller countries like Europe, they're more like the size of our states sometimes.
Right.
And it's just like you can look at a state economy when the Eras Tour would come, because people from other areas would come to that. And so some countries got an influx of people coming to their country from other countries just to see the tour.
Especially in Europe, as U.S.
Yes.
citizens realized that because of the ticket pricing laws in Europe, that the prices weren't going as high as they were for the last leg of the North American tour.
Yeah,
And that
crazy.
It was actually cheaper to go, fly internationally, stay in a hotel, get to see another part of the world and experience the Eras Tour. They could do it less than they could for flying halfway across the country here.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Taylor Swift isn't the first woman to have an impact on the economy. And realistically, what this book proposes, and when you read the book and go through the logic, it makes perfect sense that it's actually women that propel and drive the economy. And it has not been taken into account by economists for decades, if not longer.
Wow.
A lot of the premise of the book is that women function as unpaid caregivers, which they do. And that as economists, they are doing a disservice to the nations when they don't take into account the value of that unpaid work and how it allows the rest of the economy to function and to thrive.
Right. And that is amazing. And I will admit, as a man, that's, I've never thought about looking at women as a group and their impact on the economy.
Right. But, let's go back to World War II and Rosie the Riveter.
Ah, yes.
Okay. That was the first time that the United States passed legislation that subsidized and provided for early childhood care, because we had sent all of our men, or a lot of our able-bodied men, overseas to fight in this war. But we still had jobs that needed to be filled here in the United States, hence Rosie the Riveter. In order to facilitate younger women who were able-bodied going to work, many of them had children.
Yeah.
So the government developed programs that subsidized that childcare and early childhood development so that women were free to go into the paid workforce.
That's huge.
It was huge.
Yeah, that was a real turning point in general for...
It was, because you know what? A lot of women kept working even when their husbands came home.
Yeah, and more started working after that because of the trend it started.
Absolutely.
And how it enabled women. It was one of the big steps that enabled women. I mean, we see these points in history, and you really picked one. I mean, Rosie the Riveter, it is a huge piece of Americana and the history of women in this country and the empowerment of women in this country. That's really, I think it's great that you brought that up. Early childhood education, I think it's great they did that. I know at different points in history, they've tried to do more with that from a government standpoint, and it's been shot down. And I wish they would. As a parent, I know I really wish
I would support it for my kids.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that, we have to remember that even though Rosie Riveter went to work and stayed at work, do you know what year it was when legislation was passed where a woman could open a bank account in her own name without her husband or father co-signing on said account?
No. When was that? 60s or 70s?
1973.
73.
1973 was when that legislation was passed. Yeah. Interestingly, there was also legislation proposed that year that would have created an early childhood development system, subsidized that child care, because what certain people in the government realized was that cost of living was going up, and that the middle class was having trouble thriving on one income. We were very rapidly and have continued to become an economy that needs two incomes realistically to be able to support a family.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider that childcare for two children under the age of 5 is frequently a larger expense than your housing expenses.
Oh, yeah, it's as much as college almost in some
Almost.
cases. I mean, it is crazy expensive. And going back to the women, when did women have the right to have their own bank account? Women were not allowed to have their own credit cards until 1974. I just looked up the date. 74. 1974. That's not that long ago.
No, and I mean, the legislation was passed in 73, wasn't implemented until 1974.
That's crazy.
And the Nixon administration initially had been very supportive of creating this structure for early childhood education and creating a more subsidized childcare environment so that the caregiver could continue in the workforce. However, it also was the timing of this legislation passing, because it did pass both houses of Congress, and it went to President Nixon's desk to sign. Right about the same time that President Nixon was about to make the first visit to communist China by a United States president. He was then advised, I believe, by Pat Buchanan. It's in the book, and I strongly suggest you either go out and get this book or download it and listen to it on Audible. There is so much in there that will make you think about how our society is structured. But because it was perceived that if President Nixon signed this legislation, that he would be aligning with communist values, he ultimately ended up vetoing the bill.
Wow. All just because having the government help support early childhood education.
Right.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, there was another push for this recently in the post-COVID era.
Yep.
And it failed as well. It didn't even get out of Congress to get to President Biden's desk to sign.
Yeah. Terrible.
What this book argues is that the breadwinner in a home, and it's not always a man. In fact, more women pursue college degrees and actually acquire college degrees now than men.
Yep.
It's like 54% of all college graduates now are women.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when you have children in the home is that by default, people perceive the mother to be the caregiver.
Yep.
The school is going to call mom even when they've been instructed to call dad.
Yep. Women are caregivers.
They are. And yes. And, we are not only caregivers for children. We frequently end up being
most men.
Well, no, I'm thinking about our aging parents. Nice joke, Tony. Nice joke. I was not trying to be sexist. I was
the women in my life are actually, I don't think I would have made it this far without women. My mom, my wife, my daughters, they keep me in line. They have to be caregivers for their dad as well as, even before I'm aging. Right. So,
well, and I am not advocating for a society where women are the dominant. What the book advocates for is creating an equality and a parity among, in that, frequently, a woman works an 8 to 5 job, a man works an 8 to 5 job.
Right.
The man gets up, gets dressed, goes to work, finishes work, gets to go hang out with the guys afterward. And I am not stereotyping, I'm speaking in generalizations. Do not call me, do not leave comments on this about how, because there are a lot of good dads out there. And Tony, you're one of them. Okay.
Thank you.
Eric was a great dad.
Yeah.
Still is, but his kids are grown and flown.
Sure.
The woman, on the other hand, before that, going to that 8 o'clock job, has gotten up, gotten the kids ready for school, fixed lunches, signed all the permission slips, dropped the kids off at school or at daycare, and then at the end of the day is frequently, has the responsibility to go pick them up, or arranges a work schedule to leave early to go pick them up from school.
Right.
When there's a problem and a kid gets sick, like I said, frequently it is the woman that's called, not the husband. And all of this is to say that our economy has thrived the way it has because of the work that has gone I won't say unnoticed, I'll say undocumented by economists.
Sure. Or somewhat ignored.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, that's what I would say, somewhat ignored. At least you don't hear about it. I mean, I'm not reading a lot of articles about it. And I hadn't heard of this book. I'm excited to hear about it.
I think, it's...
And the author is from right there in Kansas, right?
She is. Yeah. I actually discovered the book because she was interviewed on KMBZ radio here. I was listening to the afternoon show that comes on after, because I advertise on KMBZ. So I'll pop in every now and then. I want to hear my commercials and hear how, and they were interviewing her. And let me tell you, Misty, I want to have coffee with you. She has done a phenomenal job of creating space within the world of economics to recognize the impact that women have. She has also created a space that's it's called the Care Board. And they're calling it a dashboard of economic statistics on care.
Oh, wow.
This is not a dry book. She does a really great job of interjecting. A lot of the subchapter headings are titles of Taylor Swift songs.
Oh, that's neat. And it's called Swiftynomics.
Swiftynomics.
Yeah.
And, she talks about how, women can innovate the economy and can reshape the world to make it more conducive to them being in a space where they can thrive. She talks a lot about the Kansas City Current soccer stadium.
Oh, wow.
Which, in case you didn't know, and in case our listeners didn't know, is the only professional sports stadium in the United States that was built for a women's team.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yes, and there are a lot of things in the current soccer stadium that you will find that weren't retrofitted in or thrown in as an afterthought, but that specifically support the women on the team who have kids and the fans. You have, rather than there being, like a pod, if you go to the airport and you see those pods that they call nursing rooms that are these, they've built actual rooms that are for nursing mothers. There are sensory rooms for kids who get overwhelmed with the noise and that need to decompress. Outside the locker room is the verbiage from Title IX, which another, following up on this, if you want a good movie that you may not have seen that came out a few years ago, it's out on Netflix. It's called On the Basis of Sex. And it is the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her arguing the case that led to Title IX over time. And ironically, the case that she argued was because a single man who had never been married, was not afforded the tax deduction to pay for a caregiver for his ailing mother.
Wow.
Had he been a woman, they would have been able to provide, he could have claimed a tax deduction. And he claimed the tax deduction and it was denied because he was a man.
That's crazy.
So, and it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg that argued it to the appellate court.
Wow.
So another fabulous movie to watch this weekend. Eric and I watched it a few weeks ago. I had seen it a few years ago when it came out, and Eric and I watched it, and he's like, "Are you really going to make me sit?" And yes, I am.
And he ended up. He's glad he did. Yeah, right.
And, he thoroughly enjoyed the movie, but the first, it's the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her husband. And so, of course, with the title being on the basis of sex, there's a scene at the beginning of the movie and he's like, is this what it's all going to be about? I'm like, no, just stick with it here. So anyway, all of that to say that for as progressive as it has appeared the United States is, it is obvious that while we've come a long way, baby, we've got a lot further to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. We've come a long way, slowly but surely. We've made steps, like you've talked about, but yet we're so far from being where we should be. I would agree with that. But wow, Swiftynomics, I would have never put those two things together, and I'm fascinated that they did. But I'm glad we're talking about how women impact the economy, because this is something I never hear about on other financial shows. I think it's unique, and you always like to bring unique perspectives for our listeners and viewers, Barb. I think that's fantastic, and it's important. Yes. I mean, it's important to be well-rounded.
An interesting thing that she pointed out that I'd never realized, and I was one of those women that stepped back from the workforce when my kids were little.
Sure.
And what she said is that the long-term impact, even if it looks like you were at a break even or losing money by staying in the workforce and having your children in a childcare environment, that if you choose to step out of the workforce, you never catch up to people who stayed in the workforce.
Oh, yeah. No, you lose ground.
Yes.
And it's impossible to catch back up.
Yes. And that in the long run, even if it looks like you were at a break even or losing money, you actually end up much further ahead of the game by sticking it through.
Yeah. Yep, I can see that.
So.
And that is huge. And I know you host events for women.
I do.
And women, and you've been a part of Women in Finance and Women in Business, and you host basically empowering women.
Wine, Women, and
workshops,
Wealth.
Wine, Women, and Wealth, to talk about finances from a woman's perspective, and how to face the financial hurdles that women face that men don't have to. And it is different for a woman than a man as far as finances and what hurdles they have to overcome, right?
We live longer and across the board on average have less saved. A lot of times because we've taken that time out of the workforce, or because the workforce has perceived us as having children and not being as serious about our careers. So we get passed over for promotions and other, subtle things that are done that end up making it harder for us to make that headway and have that same financial stability in retirement.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, before we go today, Barb, let our listeners out there know how they can get a hold of you and your team there at BG Wealth to talk to you, set up a consultation, ask questions, get a second opinion, anything like that.
They can always go to our website, bgwealthmanagement.com, or if you like to do this the old-fashioned way and call us, you can call us at area code 913 553-6222. Select option 4 for appointments and scheduling, and Christina or another member of our team, if they don't answer the call, will get back to you as soon as they can so that you can meet with myself or another one of our qualified fiduciaries to get that complimentary second opinion on where you are and make sure you're on the right track to achieve those financial and retirement goals.
That's awesome, Barb. Well, great show today. Another original great topic, Barb. I have to hand it to you. This was a good one.
Thanks.
I really enjoyed it. Listeners and viewers out there, that does it for today's episode of Anchor Your Retirement with our host, Barb Gullen.
We'll see you soon.